Hello and welcome to our studio here in Walsingham. I'm Pascal Mary Rakovich, and today we have the pleasure of meeting Tammy Fernando, who has an interesting story in how she got to write and what is recently published, this children's book, A Prayer from the Heart. Tammy, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get to writing the book.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well. So I'm currently a receptionist, but I've actually done lots of different careers in my life. I've been a nurse, I've been a midwife for about 15 years. After midwifery, I retrained to be a Montessori nursery teacher. So I was a nursery teacher for about 2 years. And then after that, I went into admin. And that's how I come to be in my current job, really, which I do like. It's a bit crazy at times, but I do like it.
So a variety of careers and paths, and you've boldly changed here and there and trained for other things.
Yeah.
And now you find that you've written a book, and it's just been published. Tell us how you were inspired to write this book, how you felt this was the next thing to do.
Well, it was a surprise to me. I honestly feel that God inspired me. I was just watching a video that I'd seen over and over again about a woman who I admired, who happened to be an author herself, not of children's books, of adult books about relationships and stuff. And it was just while watching this video, because I just could see that God was working in her life. She was she's not dead, sorry, a Christian. And she was talking to her girlfriends on this video about being in hospital, and her girlfriend said, "Why do you think God's allowed this to happen?" And she said, "To finish the book that I started." And I was sick at that time, not hugely sick, but I was sick and at home. And because of that similarity, I thought, what if God wants me to write a story? So I just put pen to paper, sat down, and I wrote most of what you can see now, or some of what you can see now. I've edited it so many times since the initial story. So that was it. And then as I was writing the story, I had all this emotional warmth in my heart, which I didn't really notice until afterwards. You know, you have to, with hindsight. And with I've got five other stories that I've written are in just sort of like embryo stage. But I didn't get that same feeling with them. But with this first one I did, and I almost feel it was God saying, "This is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do." So once I'd finished writing, I read it out loud as if I was reading to children, because I was a Montessori nursery teacher at the time. You know, how would it sound? And once I read it out to myself, I thought, oh my gosh, this is evangelical. I've got to get it out there. And I just that was my mission, and I just have been going on since then, really.
And that moment when you sat down and you thought, I'm just going to write, had anything been growing and developing before that, or was it just then and there you just had an idea and started writing?
It was just then and there.
Gosh.
It was just, it was. I mean, I've never thought about writing a book before or anything. All I've done in the past was tell stories, bedtime stories, to my brother and then to his children when they were children.
So you did have a lot of experience with children by this point, so a lot of reading stories, telling stories. And suddenly it was your turn to write a story, to think of one and write one.
Yeah.
All right.
And so what I did was I just wrote from what was in my heart, and what was in my heart was my brother, who had sadly died 7 years earlier, and his family that he'd been separated from. So it was my opportunity to bring them together again in the story, in my book. So my brother and his wife and their 3 children are all children in my storybook, and it's a way I could bring them together, because it was painful for them.
And he had a tragic death while his children were still young, is that right?
His children were aged between 3 and 7. And he died of pneumonia overnight. I mean, it had been building up, and he was a doctor. And nobody realised that that's what was happening. They just thought it was a flu. He's somebody that was sickly on and off. But by the time they got him to hospital, you know, it was too late, really. So it was a shock for everybody. So yeah.
Oh, that's very sad. So when you say that you wanted to bring your brother back together with his family, you mean
in the story?
In the story.
Yes, yeah. That's.
So are the characters in here representative of...
They are.
Okay.
They are. I mean, I've changed. That was his real name, and is still his name in heaven, I think. But his wife's and the 3 children's names I've changed because just to protect them and give them some anonymity, and I promised that I would do that. So they've all had name changes, but I chose Hebrew names for them because I thought, well, what better but to go back to Jesus's land and Hebrew names. So I chose some names that I think are seem to reflect their characters. So Shani is, or I think you pronounce it Shani actually, is the little girl's name, his wife's name, and it means scarlet thread, which is used in the Holy of Holies, in the curtain, and in covering some of the precious things inside the temple as well. And she's actually an artist in her own right. So because it means scarlet, I thought that was very apt for her.
So you made his wife into one of the children
characters? Yes, so she is, yes.
Okay. Yes,
and then their 3 children as well. They're all, I've made them similar to their real life characters. So the youngest one, Zana, as she's called it in the story, she likes animals. And when she was little, she was very into fashion, even at the age of 3. So, she would change her clothes or her style of clothes twice a day at least. So I've got her doing that in the story. And then their middle one, Oz, he's up for anything, and I think I've showed that a little bit in the story there. And then Or, he's the eldest of the 3. He's he's got leadership qualities, very encouraging. That doesn't come up so much in this story, but it will come up in other stories.
So the 5 other books that you said are in embryo stage, there's going to be like a sequel, a continuation, they're all connected.
Yes, adventures, the continuing adventures of Chris.
Wonderful, wonderful. And is Chris a main character in the book?
Yes, he is, main character in the book,
Okay. And so would you like to tell us a little bit what you're trying to communicate, or what you found that you wrote that you thought this is so evangelical, it needs to get out there? Yeah,
so I didn't plan anything. I literally just wrote from my heart. And so the story is about a 6-year-old boy. Chris is 6 in the story. And he's praying hard for a friend down his road because there's nobody down his road that's his age. And he's really sort of at the end of his tether, and his mum's saying, look, we'll just keep praying, we'll just keep trusting God. And he hears some noises that night, and he goes to the window, and he thinks there are people moving into what has been an empty house next door for ages, for years and years. And he thinks, I'm imagining this. I don't know. He goes back to sleep. The next day he meets this new girl, comes to school, and it's the last day of the summer term, called Shani. And he tries to make friends with her. It doesn't go very well to start off with. Eventually he starts talking to her, and they say goodbye, but he's sad again because it's the last day of term. He won't see her for the whole of the summer holidays. What a shame. And then the next day, Dad's talking to the new neighbours who have moved in next door, and he says to Chris, they're going to bring their children over for coffee, So he meets them, and who is it but Shani and and her siblings. So yes, that's good for Chris. Then there's a tortoise race as well in there. And what I really felt that the Lord impressed on my heart was children need to know that God is with them everywhere at all times. So I put God in as the Holy Trinity, that he's there on every single page, either in full Father, Son and Holy Spirit, or just in an echo form, in colours. And I felt that was really important, and also the fact that he's having a personal relationship with God, that's really important, and I really feel that children need to know that. Having been through the Catholic school system in this country, I don't really feel that it's done well enough, or maybe parents aren't, supporting their children enough. I just feel that I went to a Catholic convent school. They just did communion, and then you're sort of like dropped. And then I went into, secondary school, and then you do confirmation, and then it's just dropped. And then, so children just like floundering around. Okay, I've done this thing, I've been to church, I've had this, and okay, now, no one's telling them what's going on. No one's showing, God did that for you, or, it's just, so I just really felt that, that the children need to know that God is with them wherever they are, and he's supporting them wherever they are, and helping them, and helping make the desires of their heart that God has planted in there come true, and that you can trust God with anything that you're asking him. And the other thing that I wanted to bring out really was that Jesus had his cross in the as part of the Holy Trinity, and I wasn't sure how to depict this. I had this idea of, because I'm not the art illustrator, it's Kim Merritt who's the fantastic illustrator. I had this idea of Jesus with a big brown wooden cross behind him. I thought, yeah, that's how it's got to be. And then I mentioned it to a friend of mine who's an artist, and she said, that would be too scary, Tam. So she said, what you could do is just have it, have the Holy Trinity as colours on most of the pages, but then when he's full blown, I still wasn't sure where the cross was going to be, but it had to be there somewhere. But Kim Merritt was amazing. She just put a red cross on Jesus' tunic, sorted.
And did you want the cross to be present in the book because you wanted to convey something about suffering, the mystery of suffering in our lives? Or?
No, not really. Yeah. Just to show that this is the Holy Trinity and not just two men and a dove.
Yes. Yes.
But that this is, this is Jesus. I didn't know how else to show him, really. There was one point where I was thinking of doing halos, but then that went out the window.
Okay. And so you wrote the book, and you thought this I would love it if children could read this in order to have a deeper understanding that God is forever present in their lives, and not just at particular moments where the next sacramental moment.
Yes, yeah.
So how easy was it to then set about, what did you do to set about getting it published?
Well,
how long did it take?
8 years.
8 years?
Not long. But the thing is, I've never done anything like this before, and I thought, but how hard can it be? Famous last words. So all I did was I just looked online for publishers that would take a story without an agent. It's called unsolicited manuscripts. So that's what I did, and I tried the famous Catholic publishers, but they weren't interested. But my story needed to be edited quite a lot, and I joined the Catholic Writers Guild so I could have some buddies that would support me, and one of them was very brave. Her name is Jeannie Egolf. She's a Catholic children's story writer, and she said to me, "There's no tension in your story. So it's just too achingly sweet." I didn't know you needed tension in a story. I mean, I've never done this before. So I thought, okay, tension. I've got to get something to go wrong a little bit, get the audience on Chris's side and, ride the waves with him as he's... Yes. So I got Chris to have, to try and make a relationship with Shani, but fail. And then he's done it. So that's like the Goldilocks recipe of, things not going right. And then big chair, little chair. And then, this one's just right. So, so I had to learn to build tension in the story. And then I thought, I prayed to God about 2 years ago because things just weren't happening. I mean, I nearly threw the towel in twice because it wasn't happening. And I thought, maybe I heard God wrong, all this sort of stuff. And so I prayed and I said, God, who do you want me to work with? And I got a picture of a bride and a groom. So I thought, okay, equally yoked. Catholic, they've got to be Catholic. So I looked around. Anyway, I found a boutique publisher approached me and offered to publish my book. I thought, yay, yes, that's it. And then I found a Catholic illustrator as well. And things seemed to be, going along smoothly. And then things didn't go smoothly. And both of those things didn't happen in the end. And I thought, great, okay, I've got nobody. So I just decided to plug in onto Facebook, Christian illustrator, and I've tried a few of them that were there. One of them said, I can't really work with you because she did do an illustration for me of the Holy Trinity, but she said, somebody told me a long time ago that you can't pin God down to anything because he's God. So she said, I'm really sorry, I can't work with you. Okay, fine, next. Anyway, I found this lovely lady called Kimberly Merritt, who's in the States. And when I saw her illustration, I thought, yes, I think this is it. And she just happened to be part of an organisation, self-publishing organisation called Christian Editing and Design. I think that's right. And she said, well, I know, a professional editor. I know someone that can pull your book together for you. So unbeknownst to me, God had led me to this woman who's going to help me get this book self-published. And they're Christian, so I'm still equally yoked. So I didn't quite get what God was meaning, but anyway, there it is.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how easy is it to acquire?
It's very easy. You can just get it on Amazon. Just plug in A Prayer from the Heart by Tammy Fernando, I suppose, yes. and then you can get it there. It's just in softback cover at the moment. I somehow didn't want it to be softback and hardback. A hardback is very expensive to make, but I also didn't want this sort of thing like, oh, well, I can only afford softback and not hardback, and I just thought that's how it's coming.
Yes.
So,
and you think you might use the same illustrator, the same publishing
definitely.
For the next?
Yes, because she's drawn Chris and the other children, so she knows what
Wonderful.
They look like, and so it's best to use her. And she's got a great imagination as well. I've asked her can you do such and such for this particular illustration, and she'll come out with something different. I'm thinking, yeah, this is a lot better. Her idea is a lot better than mine. That's why she's an illustrator. So because she's illustrated like over 60 books or something, she knows what's going to sell and what children like, and so she's changed things around a little bit, but she's also listened a lot to me as well. So for example, like the front cover with Chris inside the heart, she had a different idea, but I just felt like he needed to be praying from his own heart, and that's the only way in my brain I could work it out, really. So that's what she so my image that I sent her through a scan was just a pencil stick man in a heart, but she's made this gorgeous cover in red and blue and yellow and luminescent. Oh, it's great.
Well, it's wonderful to add to the repertoire of Christian Catholic books out there.
Yeah.
For children, maybe to counterbalance a little bit all the other things that are being offered to children nowadays. But the more books we have like this that can speak to their hearts about our faith.
Hope so. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yes. And I was very excited as well to find out, because this is for 3 to 7 year olds. It's a picture book, it's a read aloud sort of thing. But friends of mine have read this story to their children, and some of them have been like 9. The eldest one has been 11, and the 11-year-old thinks it's good. So I'm really chuffed that it seems to, span ages. And she said it's very imaginative, and I thought, wow, she was really talking from her heart. She hasn't been prompt to, say that to Tammy when she speaks to you next. So So I'm very pleased, yeah.
And what's your hope that a child that has this read to them, or that they read it themselves, what's your hope that they will come away with by having read it?
Yeah, so I really hope that it'll be a book that they'll read over and over again, that they'll love it that much, because they're the books that find themselves into children's hearts, and they form children. So I'm hoping that they will see how easy and how natural it is for a child to talk to God, and how God is on their side, and how he's helping them, and how generous he is. Because Chris just prayed for one friend, and what did the uber generous God of ours do? He gave him 4. Oh. So I wanted them to see how amazing God is. And want to make him look attractive enough to engage with him, because I don't know whether schools are doing a good enough job of that. I think it seems to be like paperwork, and It's not going to the heart,
Yes,
not
yes.
something like the Catechism of the Good Shepherd, as you well know,
yes, yes.
that speaks to the heart. I think you have to speak to the heart, otherwise...
And sometimes
Yeah.
parents are a little bit overwhelmed with
Of course.
raising their children, and
Yes.
so it's quite hard to have that quiet moment with them to teach them these things, or they don't know themselves how to teach their children
Exactly,
these things.
yeah,
So this is
yeah.
a real gift for parents
I
to be
hope
able to
so.
pick up a book
Yes.
that will do the speaking.
Yeah.
And sometimes even it needs to come from someone that's not the mother or father,
Yeah.
but a child
Yeah.
sees, oh, this
Yeah.
isn't just mummy and daddy saying it. This
Yeah.
is a beautiful story, a beautiful invitation to them
Yeah.
to be like this little boy who
Yeah.
speaks to God and
Yes.
listens to him and
That's
trusts
what
in
I'm
him.
hoping.
Oh, well, certainly thank you for having the courage
Oh,
to persevere through all those
Oh,
years, and now that it's published and it's out there, available
yeah.
to the wide world, really. As
Yes.
soon as it's on Amazon,
Yes,
that's it.
yes.
So
The first of a series of 6. That's what I'm hoping for.
wonderful. Let's hope that many, many children hear this story and hear it in their hearts.
Thank you so much, Pascal Mary.
Thank
I
you.
hope so
Bless you,
too.
Tammy. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. God bless.